Today we have Nicola Davis on with us. She's a Washington, D.C. based food stylist, recipe developer, and culinary operations consultant. I met Nicola through my work at the ad agency that I work at now and immediately fell in love with her. She hails from South Africa and has chosen to start and then raise her family in Washington, D.C. Her family lives all over the world, literally, and her life experiences. I don't know. She's one of the most interesting people I know. Well, cool. Well, thanks so much for being with us today. I've talked about you to Kate. As soon as I met you, I was like, oh my God, I'm working with this gal and she has this lovely accent and she's so funny. And then the more I got to know you, I was like, and she's just like super interesting. I'm fascinated by your story in general. Growing up in a small town in the Midwest, the only thing I ever heard of from where you're from, South Africa, was that Charlize, I think you say her last name, Theron. Is that
we say Tehran actually?
Oh, Tehran.
but in America she says Theron.
Theron, yes. Well, I thought that was like not the hillbilly way of saying it, but like the Jen way of saying it. I'm like Charlize Theron. But that's
definitely
good to
the
know.
American way.
Okay. Yeah, that's the only thing I ever knew about South Africa was I really liked her. I feel like maybe as a teenager, and I knew she was from South Africa. And that's literally the only thing I know about where you're from.
It's so funny. People will either say Charlize Theron to me, Nelson Mandela, or Die Antwoord. Have you heard of that random band, Die Antwoord? Okay.
No.
You don't have to Google them. They're terrible. Okay. They're like these weird, very weird, like techno band, and they go out of their way to be like super, like horrible. So you don't want your country to be known by it. But we have like Charlize Theron and then that band.
I should have known about Nelson Mandela. That would have made me sound smarter, but that was not what I knew. So tell us a little bit about, just growing up in South Africa and kind of like I'm just so intrigued by all of it.
Yeah. Well, my upbringing in South Africa was probably pretty tame and not dissimilar to yours. Kind of middle class suburban family, honestly. Obviously, there's a very wide range of people. There's a very wide range of like demographics and income levels in South Africa. But I came from like white middle class suburban family in Johannesburg. So I imagine most of my upbringing wasn't too dissimilar to yours. We obviously have different weather and different political climates and all of that stuff, but kind of sheltered and went to a public primary school and a private high school, and parents tried to do their best for us, got us into college, and then, I was pretty protected until I was 18, and then when I went off to college, they were like, peace out, you're on your own now. Kind of figure it out. We didn't go, my parents were pretty frugal as well. Like we never wanted for anything, but we definitely were not like ostentatious or like, or the opposite. We just, they were pretty frugal with their money. So we didn't go on a lot of holidays. We went on like holiday every other year, maybe spent a lot of time at home in the school holidays, reading and just enjoying being at home. And it was only when they kind of surprisingly let me free with no tethers. I don't know if I would do this for my kids because I was like, oh, yeah. Because in South Africa, well, you can drink and drive when you're 18. So I left home, got my license, and it was legal to drink. So all of that happened, and my parents were like, go be free. So all of that happened kind of at the same time. And I had some very concentrated years of fun after that, figuring out all the things I hadn't been allowed to do when I was a teenager. And bless my parents, it must have caused them a lot of gray hairs and taken some years off their life, but they let me do it. I've survived out the other side,
And are you have kids now?
Yes, I have a 5-year-old and a bun in the oven coming out in July.
Well,
very soon.
congratulations.
Thank you.
You are raising your kiddos here in the US?
Mm-hmm. Sienna was born here, so she's got her American citizenship, obviously, and we got her South African citizenship, and then we got our citizenship. And funnily enough, my husband and I actually lost our South African citizenship when we gained our American citizenship, just because of bureaucratic rules. So Sienna's the only one currently who has South African citizenship, which is strange.
That is
That's
strange.
wild.
Yeah, I think we can get Rowan South African citizenship still just from ancestry, but we have to work to get ours back because you have to request to keep it, which is unconstitutional, I believe. They're busy fighting. There's a whole big lawsuit in South Africa about that at the moment, so we'll find out if we get it back. But it's not as horrible as it sounds. You still keep permanent residence, and you only have to live there for a year to apply for citizenship. So if we wanted to get it back, we just have to move back, which is
Yeah. Do you think, I mean, obviously if your oldest is 5, then has she started school yet or not?
She's starting in September.
Yeah.
She just turned 5 starting in September.
I have a 5-year-old too, so we're super excited to start. But
He's so cute about it. He's like, I'm 5 and I get to go to school.
yeah,
I'm like,
it was
oh.
like
I'm
on
like,
his
in a-
5th birthday, he woke up and he was like, I'm going to school today. And I was like, not today, but yeah, soon.
Yeah. Is he nervous at all, or is he just like pure 100% excited?
He's so excited. My oldest is 10. So Arlo's been watching my oldest go off to school for years and is like, hey, I'm ready to get going. So no, he's super, super excited. He's ready to make friends. And I'm a stay-at-home mom. So
he's been at home up until this point. So he's like ready to jump into.
Yeah. Yeah. Thankfully I have a 3-year-old. So he's had like a buddy, to play with, but he's ready to make some friends of his own that aren't brothers. So,
That's awesome.
but it'll be interesting for you to see kind of like the similarities and differences, I guess, between the education system between South Africa and America.
Yeah, it already is. I mean, mostly it's just cool. Like, we went into the school and I'm like, oh, there's the gym. This is the gym. Like, all we've seen is American movies where they like do stuff in the gym. And then I'm like, there's the nurse's office. I'm like, they have a nurse. There's the cafeteria. Oh my God. Like, it's just like Mean Girls in every movie about school you ever watched, or like Breakfast Club or any of that. Our schools themselves are just built different. I think like California, I've seen pictures of schools in California where they're kind of outside, like you walk outside between classrooms and stuff because the weather is so much better. It's more like that. Like, we have a tuck shop instead of a cafeteria where you just like go buy a sandwich, but then you sit outside, find a spot outside and play outside, with your friends. So like the concept of a gym and a cafeteria and all of that is all kind of romanticized in my head.
Yeah. Well, those are really the better parts of school anyways. So
yeah,
you're looking forward to the right thing.
The education system, I'm still wrapping my head around it. It seems like something I can't compare apples to apples. Like grade level, like the concept of a straight A student in America seems a little bit more common. Like to be at that level of a straight A student seems like it's an achievement still, and you have to work hard to get it. But to be like an 8A student, AP student in South Africa is pretty much impossible. Like maybe 1% or 0.5% of the kids in your grade will achieve that, and they are like going to be rocket scientists. Yeah. So like the level of education and how it's graded seems quite different. I don't know.
Do you think it's like the participation award in America where like everyone needs a participation award?
We're all great. We're all fantastic.
All good.
Well, there's two things. I think there's this whole concept of, I don't even remember what it's called now, the standardized testing. I think that had to do with it, but I don't know enough about it to really have a strong opinion either way about that. But also I think there's a little bit of conflict of interest between the rating of the schools and the passing grade averages. I think it's a little bit of a conflict of interest to like maybe kids are getting, not necessarily to get A's, but like the pass rate maybe.
For sure.
Push kids through.
We definitely, we saw that in our school. In our school at one point, I remember when I was in high school, it won some kind of award, and it was like a big award. And I remember being kind of surprised because I knew that I knew people in my class and the class above me that, and we were sophomores, juniors, maybe even a senior at that time, that literally they weren't literate. They could read some, but they couldn't fully read, and they had passed all the way through.
Yeah.
And I just thought, like, what a disservice to, and I don't know if it was like a resource issue. And I think the school system where we grew up has come a long way since then. But yeah, I definitely think there is and it's funny, my husband, Saichin, growing up in India, I mean, he has a whole opinion about like his education experience. And it's funny, like just trying to compare all the things together and figure out how we educate children globally.
And again, I can only say my experience, which was definitely privilege. I mean, privilege in South Africa is another whole set of rules to privilege here. I was definitely in the privileged few in South Africa. So there's definitely schools where that is the case as well, where they just don't have resources. So yeah, it's interesting. There's like the whole and then the parts within the whole, and
Yeah.
So back to your childhood in South Africa, you have siblings. You mentioned a sister.
Yes, I have a younger sister. Her name's Sarah. She is living in London right now. Yeah, she's pregnant as well. She's due the same week as me. It's causing
fun.
Lots of stress.
Yeah, right. And then your parents, what did they do for work?
My mom was a teacher, an English teacher. She actually was the English teacher at my high school, and so was my husband's mom. They were both English teachers at my high school. And then my dad was a geology engineer. So he worked for a very big oil company, similar to Shell, and would prospect like where the oil deposits were and the coal deposits and all of that. And then when I was kind of mid-high school, he went out on his own and started his own business doing that. And then they retired to Mauritius 5 years ago, same year I had Sienna, because it's this holiday. It's kind of like a tropical island off of Madagascar towards India in the Indian Ocean. But they have a really good deal for retirees. They're just like, okay, you have to bring in this much money per year and you live off it. You like pay your rent and buy your food and do all of that. And that's all you have to do. And you can come and retire here. And I guess it stimulates their economy. I think Puerto Rico's got the same kind of deal if you want to retire there. So they now live in like a little house on the beach in Mauritius. Takes us 36 hours to get there.
Oh, gosh.
God.
But it's nice. It is worth it.
Were your parents born and raised in South Africa?
My mom was born in England, but she moved when she was 10 or so. So she spent most of her life in South Africa. My dad's actually Zimbabwean or Rhodesian. And his great-grandmother was like born under a wagon on the way to like the town of Bulawayo. So we are pretty much the colonizers of Zimbabwe. Okay.
Oh, I love that.
Join
the tech issue. I love it.
So we're pretty much the colonizers of Zimbabwe. There's photos of like these women dressed in Victorian high collared hats, and then like the babies are on a lion skin rug in front of them. It's kind of crazy.
Oh, casual.
Yeah.
I feel like it's so different than like, Jen and I, our parents were born here. Their parents, I mean, half of them were born here. I feel like sometimes when I hear about people that live in other countries, it feels like y'all are such like explorers of the world. And like a lot of us, it's like, we've just been here, we're just here. We just keep staying here. Like
it's kind of similar in a way. It's just a generation or two removed. Like the frontier people and all of that in America. Honestly, the way the white people did it in South Africa was pretty similar, for better, for worse. Like traveling across, making their way. It was just a kind of a generation late. It happened in like the turn of the century versus like a generation before that. So it's not too dissimilar. You just a little removed.
Yeah. I just keep thinking of Oregon Trail, and I don't think they had Victorian hats or babies laying on lions.
No, they did not.
It was like
they had dysentery.
Yeah.
That was it.
Yeah. Can you like tell us kind of like in relation South Africa, like how many US states would that be? Which US states would that be size-wise?
Oh, it's definitely a lot smaller. I think it's compared to the size of Texas. Maybe it's a bit bigger than Texas, but we have 9 provinces versus 42. So it's definitely smaller than America. I mean, nowhere except for Russia is as big as America. So to get from Johannesburg to Cape Town, which are kind of the 2 furthest big cities, is an hour and a half flight.
Okay.
So yeah, you can, it's pretty well connected with flights, and I don't think any of them are longer than 2 hours, but then there are some pretty remote places that you would have to like drive further after that, which I guess is the case.
Yeah.
Here.
And then Johannesburg,
I guess is the case.
Like what size of a city compared to like a US city is that?
It's bigger than Washington, D.C. for sure. I would say it's about Baltimore size.
Okay.
That's my closest frame of reference. Like it's a decent city. It's like a sprawling, or even Atlanta, I would say. It's kind of like a sprawling metropolis. It's got like the urban center, but then it's got like the sprawling suburbs around it. And it kind of like joins into the city next door.
Yeah. It's funny when I Google South Africa, and it just like, it always shows coastline. And so I never think about like the suburbs. And of course there's like suburbs to coastal areas, but I just have, I have like no awareness with geography, period.
Yeah. So Johannesburg's actually up. So it's got the coastal around the edges, and then it goes up and has a flat escarpment, they call it. So we have like quite a high altitude in Johannesburg. So it's like nice, mild weather, hot in summer, cool, but not cold in winter, like cool. I imagine not too different from Denver summers, like cool in the morning, gets nice and hot, cool in the evenings. And yeah, like Johannesburg is definitely not close. Like it's a 6-hour drive to get to the beach. Okay. It's definitely like a working city. I always think to myself, and when I try and explain it to other people, Johannesburg's the New York. That's where you go to make money. And Cape Town's where everyone wants to live. So it's like parts of California. Gotcha. Like it's very cool, very trendy, very creative. But there's not a lot of work there. Well, there is, but not for everybody who wants to live there.
So you grew up in Johannesburg. Where do you go to college?
In Pretoria, which was the town next door.
Okay.
So that's also another thing, like tertiary education. It was a very respected state university. We've got like incredible universities, incredible education in South Africa. But it was cheaper than my high school education.
Oh,
no loans, no nothing, which is a huge blessing to start adulthood with a degree and no student loans. I didn't even think about it. Like, it's not even a conversation that families need to have. It's like, yeah, we can afford to send you to university. Obviously, it's like a public institution. The only question is, can you get in based on your merits? The only problem is, my university is not on any drop-down lists when I apply for jobs.
Sure, yes. They're like...
So sometimes I just can't apply for, like, there was a time when I was applying for jobs and I just couldn't apply because you can't complete the application without putting your school in, and it just wasn't on the list. So I'm like, okay, I guess xenophobia.
Let's talk about your merits. Was it hard for you to get into college?
No. I got in. I definitely wasn't like that straight A student, but again, it's not
as common.
I mean, I don't know if I would have been here. Yeah, I don't know if I would have been here or not. I didn't really try that hard in high school. I did a lot of dancing. I was a dancer in high school, and I was deciding if I was going to go study ballet or go study something else. So I did fine. I got like A's and B's. But yeah, it was easy to get into college. Enjoyed it. Just decided to do food instead of ballet, and kind of went on from there. Too tall to do ballet, they told me. But I think they were being nice. I think I just was like kind of average. They're like, you can come and study it, but I don't know if you're going to have a career out of this. You're too tall. I'm like, okay. And I'm like, I'll take the too tall. But I think I just wasn't good enough.
So Jen mentioned that you went to high school with your husband, but you didn't date in high school. When did you guys link up? Did you meet and did you decide to date in college, or was that after?
Yeah, well, I knew him in high school. He actually dated one of my friends in high school. He was very clean cut, deputy head boy, prefect kind of thing in high school. I went off on my, kind of high key adventurous days after college. I came to America, worked at a ski resort.
Oh, nice.
For a while in Lake Tahoe, and then went back for a summer season and was doing like all these kind of wild things. He went to art school. And then when I got back, he was an emo kid. So he had tattoos all over him and like the hair over the eyes and all of that. And we went like just as some mutual friends to some metal club, and kind of refound each other at 21. And the rest is history. We had, mutual friends. We had like history of knowing each other. His mom taught me English. So I knew he was like essentially a good guy from, good stock.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Sure. And then what brought y'all to America rather than staying in South Africa with family?
Yeah. Well, I knew I wanted to go. I wasn't ever really a super adventurous person just because I didn't know that I was. I never had that part of me like opened up as a kid because we just had this very comfortable, kind of, like all of us worry about sometimes, like just this comfortable, like stepped out life, like high school, college, whatever. And then I went on this gap year. I was going to go with a boyfriend I had at the time, or I did actually. I wanted to go work on the cruise ships and dance, be like a Rockettes dancer on the cruise ship. He wanted to go to the ski resorts. We said we'd go to the ski resorts first and do the cruise ships after that, but we broke up while we were away. And I went to South Lake Tahoe to be just like a ski patrol, or like, what did I start as? I started just as a hostess in one of the restaurants on a ski resort, and they give you a ski pass for the season, and you live in a house with, one bathroom and 25 people. And you have your minimum wage, and you live, we saved all the money we made and just had fun. And then I loved Tahoe. Like South Lake Tahoe is like heaven on earth. And I was like, wow, is this what America's like?
Yeah.
Is this what American people are like? I could live here. I was like, wow, they're so free spirited. They don't feel like they have to get a college degree and then go and work. And like, little did I know that there's obviously a very special funnel of people going to work on ski resorts and be ski bums. And, a lot of us in America, are essentially doing exactly that, following the steps to be that are prescribed to us. But I came back like with that planted in my head. And I guess that influence of those kind of people I met there, I did go back 10 years later, and a lot of those people were still there, probably wearing the same jeans and underwear. So
definitely.
So, life choices. I went home, started my career. I actually almost married somebody for a green card. I'm not going to lie. I was like, I want to stay. I can earn enough money. I can earn enough as a bartender to raise a family. Like you can in South Lake Tahoe. You get like a good restaurant or one of the casinos. You can raise a family on a bartender salary. It's great. And I mean, plenty of people do, it's not like that in South Africa. Minimum wage is much, much lower. So I briefly considered that. I'm glad I didn't. That guy did not make it very far in life. Don't think that would have worked out. But I came home and I was determined to find a way back at some point. But I started my career at a restaurant company called Nando's, which is pretty big in DC and Chicago and opened up in Texas now. It's this like huge company all over the world, but very tiny in America. And obviously America is the land of opportunity for people and businesses. So I started with them. And then when they opened restaurants in America, I was like, hey, I'll go. Like I'm a young up and coming young buck. I'm cheap. My salary is cheap. The American business is cheap, looking for people to go. So I went and helped them open restaurant like 18 to 45 or something. working on their food safety and their menu development and all of that, which was lots of fun. Lots of South Africans still in the business. It was a nice kind of foot on each side. And Dylan came with me. In fact, Dylan hadn't set foot in America the day before he moved to America. So that was pretty brave. That was pretty brave of him, actually. He arrived on like December 27th or something into like DC, Northeast DC. I don't know if you've ever been to Northeast DC. Like, it was empty. It was like winter. And he's like, what have I done?
Where did you take me?
This is not what I thought America was going to be like. This is not what you told me. But we've since loved it. You know, we've built community, made friends. We definitely did that the hard way because we wanted to make proper community. Mm-hmm. It's honestly one of the things we've missed the most culturally about moving from South Africa. But yeah, anyway, that's how we ended up here. I no longer work for Nando's, but they brought me over.
I am listening to you talk about your family kind of being spread out. My husband and I are high school sweethearts, so our entire family all live in the same little county of Indiana. And 4 years ago, we decided to move from Indiana to Idaho, very north Idaho. And now we live in Washington, right over the state border. And it was for my husband's job. And that's been one of the hardest things for us, is like not having that community. We've like really struggled to find it here. And, you know, my family now feels spread out because Jen has always kind of bounced around. But for a long time, when Jen lived in Tennessee, it was just 4 hours, you know, from Indiana to Tennessee. That felt like doable on a weekend, you know. But it's really hard. And at least we're still all in the same country. Like, hearing that your sister lives in England and your parents live in this tiny little island, it's like, that's so hard to imagine.
It is. I don't think I knew that. I mean, I was 26 or 27 when I moved. So we were in like full party mode still. We were married, but like completely still young and free. And that's not even on your brain. It's not on your mind when you're moving. You're just up for the adventure. You're just up for the adventure of it. So, Dylan's family was very upset. They were not happy. It took them a long time to accept us moving. Especially because it was my impetus, and he was just kind of following me. And it was fine for a long time. I mean, I missed my family. There were definitely homesick moments. But in those first years, it was more of like a cultural and community missing thing, more than family necessarily. I mean, when I was in Tahoe, I had a cell phone, but it was expensive to use it. My freaking family didn't hear from me for months. I don't know how my parents survived those years after they left. But I don't think I'd let my kid do that. But they obviously trusted that they brought me up well. But then you have kids, and it is really hard. Like, having kids in itself is hard. Having kids with like the physical, like the visceral support, you need it. Like, you need that visceral support. And that part has been really hard. Like, my mom came over for a month when Sienna was born, and we obviously have family visiting us, and we visit them as much as we can as well. But yeah, that visceral help, and just having someone to call on when you need to step out, or if someone's sick, or if something's happened, it's really tough. It's definitely made us question our life choices. But the sad part is there's not really any going back for us. I mean, Dylan's mom and dad still live in South Africa, but my sister's not there. My parents aren't there. I mean, I don't really have a reason to go back. Like, I'd rather get Dylan's parents here if we were going to do anything, which is weird. It makes you feel kind of stateless, as well as not having that support. The whole stateless thing is something I think a lot about. Both being like a white person in South Africa and not knowing if that's like where you should be, or having moved and immigrated and your family not being there anymore and not quite American, not quite South African. Yeah, that's a whole thing too. But yeah, we see them as much as I can. I mean, that's what we spend our disposable income on. We live modestly, as you know, my parents brought me up like that. We have a house that's much smaller than most of the people we know, and save our money and go to the Netherlands or go to England or go to Mauritius. Like that's what we spend our money on, going to see family.
And you said you've managed to build some community where you live now.
Yeah, it took a long time. I mean, we've been here for 10 years. But it took a long time. I mean, South Africans and Americans are much more different than I would have expected us to be, friends-wise. I mean, South Africans, you can make a friend and you'll be over at their house grilling and drinking beers the next weekend, because if they liked you, they're like, cool, let's be friends. American people, and funnily, Jen's one of the people I see as an exception, because you're just so lovely and open in general. Unless you're just pretending to be.
I was so excited to share that Airbnb with you. Jen was like, hey, I know this is a weird request, but do you want to share an Airbnb with me on the next shoot?
I'm like, yeah, that sounds great. Let's do it. But most people, like you're kind of an exception to the rule. Most people will be friendly to a certain point. And then to get through those next few layers is really, really hard. Yeah. Like to get into people's lives and connect with them and to feel like you can ask favors and help them out, or like presume to offer them a favor even. I feel like offered ourselves and our support to people countless times and just never had it taken up on. And people need it. We just live so insularly that we don't want to accept help.
I think,
and we have, even though we want,
I don't know. I think part of it is also generational, because I think back to like, I mean, people I know who's like, it's like, even in the States, it's like, oh yeah, like we, as a community, the neighborhood would come together and the kids would all play. And I think there's some of that still, like in the suburbs and the cul-de-sacs. But like for the most part, I do feel like we've become very insular, and that is like an American truth now, that you have to almost,
it's kind of an American tragedy. I think it's becoming a very big
and you
deal.
have to like really fight against it. And so I think it's Kate and I have talked about, even with her kids, like having community within like band or a sport or some, like, because they neither one of us,
someone you can drop your kid
neither one of us go to church right now. So like, and Kate and Logan have never gone to church, and I haven't had a church in years. But we've talked about even that, like the church being a community within the American ecosystem of like Logan, her husband, being like, I wish there was something like that for people who aren't religious,
like that,
so that you still have that one place where like community is like the primary goal. Because it doesn't feel like it is in most other American circles.
Right. So funnily enough, I'm also kind of lapsed, because I mean, so many of us are questioning this stuff, but at the time we moved, we were still quite in the thick of that, and we immediately joined a church, and that was a lot of our community and how we made friends, because that's one of the, I mean, of all the cons of Christianity and all the stuff that's happening at the moment, the community is one of the big pros, and people looking after each other. So that definitely helped. And then just also being intentional about not slipping into like the South African people. We were like, no, we're here in America. We want to be part of American society. We want to make these friends. And then what do we stand for? Like, how much do we want to assimilate versus how much do we want to keep of who we are? Which was also very interesting, because I didn't know how much of it was like our personality versus our culture. Sure. And you don't know with the people you're meeting, how much is just their personalities and how much is cultural. So the community part is that's been our biggest thing. And we've gone in and out of different communities over the last few years, but it definitely takes effort. You just have to, I don't know, I'm finding we just have to build this trust with people, that it's not a favor. It's not something you have to pay back. It's just like, we're here for each other to do this stuff. Like, I am in Tennessee for the week and my husband's going to be in DC. Do you mind picking Sienna up from school and keeping her, and we'll pick her up at dinner time? like that's kind of unheard of to ask for that, but it shouldn't be, you know?
Feels like kind of gone are the days
be.
of that phrase, it takes a village. It's like, no, it still takes a village. We just don't have one. Still takes that village.
Yeah, it would be much more enjoyable if we had a village, but instead we're just like sweating and crying all the time. So
I know. Well, Dylan and I are like forcing our village on people. We're like, no, we need a village. We don't have one. You will be our village and we will be your village. You will take it. Like a lady down the street gave birth a few weeks ago. I'm like, okay, cool. Here's the meal train. Everybody sign up. And then we took her food and stuff. And I don't think everybody was like completely on board or ever heard of that. Because it's a very church.
That's what I was going to say. The only time I've ever heard of a meal train is with like the church.
But why not? Like we sit and have barbecues together at like neighborhood functions. Like obviously we should come together if somebody's had a kid and is like their parents live in New Jersey.
Yeah.
But now I think I've broken down the wall. She's bringing her 2-week baby over on Monday. I'm watching him for an hour while she has an appointment. 6-week baby. So that's trust.
Yeah, look at you.
I don't think she has an option. I think I'm.
But hey, you are.
She knows I'm not She knows I'm not a crazy. Yeah, she knows I'm not a crazy person. I know how to keep a kid alive for an hour or two. You know, and she needs it. And I'm just so flattered and touched that she asked for it. Like that is a breakthrough. She needed it, and she asked for it. Like yes.
I have a question about your traditions. So one of my favorite things about marrying someone from a different culture is just like all of these everyday traditions that they have that are so different than anything I've experienced or ways that they celebrate or specific things they celebrate. But in South Africa, I guess let's start with you. You mentioned you guys came here affiliated with religion. Is Christianity predominantly in South Africa or Catholicism, or what are the predominant faiths there?
I think the predominant faith is Christianity or versions of it. They definitely have a lot of versions of it, but it's not as tied to your identity as it is here. I mean, look, it's been 10 years since I've been in it. So with everything that's happened here in the last 10 years, it might have changed there too. But it was kind of like you went to church, you had that life, and then like you had the rest of your life. And it didn't really matter if you're a Methodist if you're Catholic, you're Catholic, but Methodist, Baptist, whatever, there wasn't like an identity subscribed, attributed to that. That was a surprise to me. It was a surprise coming to America and feeling a bit of shame for being Christian.
Interesting. Yeah.
That was a new experience. Or having to like say, oh, I'm Christian, but I'm not like that type of Christian.
Yeah. No, that's definitely a thing here.
Anyway, so there is that tradition, but it's not so much a part of life. It's not tied to your identity as much. And I often lament that. I feel like, Hinduism and Muslim and Jewish religions is tied to culture, which I kind of like in a lot of ways. But yeah, it wasn't like that for us. For us, the culture is be outside as much as you can, share food with people. We do a lot of grilling out, but like it's not hamburgers and hot dogs. It's like good meat, like kind of like Brazilian steakhouse vibes, like lots of good meats. Everybody around the fire helping to cook, like having people over all the time, the kids all like swimming or running around the garden. Being outside is definitely a big general cultural thing for us. The other traditions that are just so different is just because of the climate or the hemispheres. Like Christmas and the holiday period is hot. It's like the peak of summer. Yeah. So celebrating Christmas looks so different for us. It's having people over, cooking a turkey on, in the Weber, and getting floaty toys for Christmas.
Did your first, have you guys had a Christmas with snow? I'm sure you have, right? In DC?
It's never snowed on Christmas, but it snowed like around Christmas. We've definitely had snow days, snow weeks.
So magical. I always think about that when I see people who, there's a gal I follow who lives in Africa, and she talks about her Christmas as being like that. And it's always so weird. Or even when I think about people that live in California and don't have snow on Christmas or the desert, and I'm like, oh my gosh, One of my favorite things I've ever done, which I'm trying to think if you would have met April on the La Brea commercial that we shot.
Yeah.
April, when I was working for her, this is the most obscene gift, but she surprised me with like a 4-day trip for my Christmas present, to go to Germany. We went to Germany and France to the holiday markets.
Wow.
She had a friend who worked at the airlines, and her and her husband were going, and they're amazing. I love them like as a couple. And so we all went over there, and I was like, okay, I love an American Christmas, but like when I went to those markets, because it was like the added element of just like the history of the place and the architecture, I was like, I felt like I was in a Disney movie. It was magic.
I haven't done that yet, but my brother-in-law, because they live just across the way in Holland, they just take a train.
Casual.
And they go do that. It does look pretty damn magical.
Casual little train ride to the markets. That's like on my list of, I have this like little secret wish list of things to do with Kate one day. And it's funny, it'll be interesting to see how we map it all out, because I had like all of this freedom in my 20s and 30s, and Kate had very limited freedom just because she was raising all these kids, and being a wife. And now I'm like, she's going to be on the cusp. Like her kids will graduate and leave the nest, and I'll, probably still have littles. So, I don't know when we'll do it, but my goal, one of them, is to go to a holiday market with her in Europe.
Well, all the talk about community, like something that South Africans would totally do and be like, oh, I know somebody right there. I will give you give them my brother-in-law's number, and they will literally probably help you and like let you stay there and all of that. So when you do decide to do it, and that's not a favor, that's just like what you do. Like, oh, I live in a cool place. You should totally come and use me while you're here and stay here and let me help you.
Yeah, no, I love that. And I can't wait to meet your brother-in-law. Knock, knock. Here I am.